Hello YouTubers and welcome back to my channel 100% Pure Elvis. It's really good to see you all again and I hope you are all keeping well, and to all of the new subscribers who have joined recently, thank you for joining the channel. On this upload today I'm going to talk more about myself and my interests in Elvis and outside of Elvis. I've had a lot of my new subscribers contact me recently asking more about myself and my interests outside of Elvis, so I'm more than happy to share that. But obviously this channel is all about 100% Pure Elvis, but I think this gives me a great opportunity to talk more about myself. And I have done this before on my channel, but the one I did previously was all about my upbringing around Elvis. This one's going to be about my upbringing around Elvis and other influences outside of Elvis, so I hope you don't mind. So I was brought up in a family of 4 siblings, a mother and a stepfather. My mum and my dad divorced when me and my twin brother were only 2 years old. I did have an older brother who passed away, unfortunately, at the age of 49. And my sister is now 57. And me and my twin brother are both 52. So losing my older brother at such a young age had a massive impact on my life. But I just want to start at the very beginning, if you don't mind. We were brought up in a loving household. We were not well off. My mum retired from work when me and my twin brother were born. My stepfather was working on construction and worked day and night to bring in the money for the family, and we never wanted for anything. We were in a household full of love. We always had the TV on. I can remember that vividly, and we always had music on in the background. My mum played a lot of Elvis and other music from her favourite eras, but it was mainly always Elvis. And I always remember it was always mainly Elvis from the 70s. And I have asked my mum since, and she just preferred the music from the 70s and the 60s. She wasn't a big fan of Elvis music from the 1950s, even though that would have been her era. My mum was born in 1940 and she is now 84 years of age. So that would have been the perfect era for my mum to start listening to Elvis in 1956 onwards. But again, she does enjoy the 1950s, but her favourite era of music is the 1970s. So my recollection of Elvis was always from the 1970s, watching the movies when they came on TV and all sitting around as a family watching them. My older brother Michael, who sadly passed away, he was also a big Elvis fan way before I was, and but he wasn't a collector of Elvis. He just loved listening to his music, and he influenced my brother a lot throughout his life. But then obviously he spread his wings and moved out, and again, you know, I then started really getting interested into Elvis. I would say in the late 1980s, that is when I really started getting more information on Elvis. I just wanted to know more about this entertainer that was always being played in the background, whose movies were on the TV. I'll always remember the very first movie I seen of Elvis Presley was Blue Hawaii, and I was in awe of him. You know, it's a superb movie, and it hit me hard, where I wanted to know more about this man and his career and his music. In the early days, I only knew the big hitters of Elvis Presley music. And what I mean by that is Your Suspicious Minds, The Wonder of You, It's Now or Never, Stuck on You, the number ones, etc. I did not know Elvis back catalogue whatsoever. So when I really started collecting Elvis as a collector myself, I started collecting CDs first. And again, that's why I'm just going to show you the first item in this upload today. Now, I'll always remember the very first CD that I bought on Elvis was the Reader's Digest of the 5 CD set, The Legend Lives On. And I played these CDs to death. And I brought these out of my own wage packet, one of my first wage packets. And again, for me, this is where I started learning more about Elvis Presley music from the 50s, 60s and 70s. And again, let me try it's in the other one. Now, the little booklet that comes inside here, this to me was a godsend. It's a lovely booklet that comes inside this Reader's Digest The Legend Lives On set. And inside it gave you great information about each track that was included on this 5 CD set, and reading more about them tracks, I just absolutely adored it. So this has very special meaning to me in my collection. And as I was saying, it's not a big valued item, but to me it is, because again, this is the starting point for me in my Elvis collecting. And again, you know, as I was saying earlier, hearing some Elvis songs that I hadn't heard before, or maybe had heard before but didn't know much about, to me, I played these to death. Elvis The Legend Lives On from Reader's Digest from 1987. And again, I want to rewind a bit, because the very first item of Elvis Presley that I ever owned was not purchased by myself. My mum's older sister, my Auntie Sheila, she sadly passed away, and in her vinyl collection, she had Elvis 40 Greatest. And as we all know, this was a very big seller in the United Kingdom. And my mum kindly gifted this to me to start my collection. So this has very special meaning indeed. And on the back, and I remember, I loved the image from Aloha from Hawaii. I was always in awe of that concert, and the image on the front, like it's like the matinee Elvis from the 1960s. And in the middle, I just remember I absolutely loved the centerfold of this. To me, it, you know, it just caught my attention, and again, loved everything about it. And again, you know, these are easy to pick up, relatively cheap. And again, that's why this holds very special meaning in my Elvis collection. Again, it's a really cheap item. You can probably get this picked up for £5–10, but that doesn't mean anything to me. This is special because this was my Auntie Sheila's copy and the very first Elvis Presley album that I owned on a vinyl. Now, let me just carry on with the story, if you don't mind. So obviously, when I started collecting Elvis on CD, I started off by buying the greatest hits CDs, as I said, the Reader's Digest. And then I slowly but surely started buying the studio albums on CD. And I was on the VHSs of his movies. So I wanted to buy every single movie on VHS, which obviously doesn't exist anymore. It's now DVDs and Blu-ray. So eventually I was able to get a hold of every single one of his movies on VHS. It took me a number of years. And again, you know, because the house I lived in with my parents was, me and my twin brother shared a bedroom, but then my brother moved out to be with his partner because she got pregnant, so they decided to get their own place. I then had my own bedroom, so I had more space for my Elvis collection, and it just grew and grew from there. And every opportunity that I had to buy an Elvis Presley product, I purchased it out of my wage packet. You know, obviously my mum charged me board. I gave my mum the board, made sure I had enough money throughout the week to tie myself over, but then I would always treat myself, and it was always an Elvis product. And the very first vinyl that I purchased on Elvis was Presley, the all-time greatest hits, still one of my favorite greatest hits collection to this day. It has very special meaning because I just love the front cover, Presley. And again, I said it on my previous upload, the touch on the back where it gives you the peak positions of each track from the United States of America and the UK. I wanted as much information on Elvis as possible, and that centerfold, again, I was so impressed with that as well. So again, this had significant meaning to me because this was the very first vinyl that I purchased out of my money on Elvis Presley. Presley, the all-time greatest hits. Now, obviously, the next thing that I started collecting, I'm an avid reader. I love reading books. I'm more of a biography type of person, non-fiction. So obviously that took me on to buying Elvis books, and the collection grew and grew. And to this day, I would say I have over maybe 150 books on Elvis. And again, the starting point, the very first book on Elvis Presley I purchased, again, no value whatsoever, but valuable to me, Elvis a King Forever. And again, you know, that image on the front there in that white suit from the movie, The Trouble with Girls and How to Get Into It, to me, I absolutely adored this image of Elvis on the front, and on the back, that famous quote by John Lennon, before Elvis, there was nothing. Without him, there would be no Beatles. Again, you know, growing up, I was never a fan of the Beatles. You know, I knew like people blamed Elvis's decline in the 1960s because the Beatles came along and they forgot Elvis. I'll go on to that a bit later if you don't mind, but this was the very first book that I purchased on Elvis. Elvis, a King Forever. And I just want to go obviously onto my background because, you know, most of my subscribers will know I am a gay man, and, you know, I hid it for a number of years from my family. You know, I didn't come out until the age of 25 in 1997. So at that stage, I'd been collecting Elvis for near on 10 years. And again, to me, you know, Elvis was the most handsome man that ever graced a screen, in my personal opinion. He was so handsome. And, you know, obviously being a gay man, you know, I just thought, I'll always remember talking to my mom about how handsome he was, and, you know, very fashionable. You know, I thought my mum might have had an inkling about my sexual orientation, but she didn't. So when I told my mum and stepfather in 1997, it comes a bit of a shock to them. So again, but, you know, they accepted it and been happy ever since. And again, you know, but what I've noticed being an avid Elvis collector and fan, you know, you don't come across many gay fans of Elvis. So, you know, sometimes I felt a loner, you know, in regards to, you know, I'd want to know more about Elvis. I'd want to talk to people more about Elvis. And, you know, just having the family around me, I found that at times quite stifling. And at times I felt quite vulnerable and isolated because I wanted outsiders to be able to talk to about Elvis and my love of Elvis. But I also wanted to meet similar gay men, and where we could share our love of Elvis and Elvis music and movies, etc. So again, you know, anything I could get a hold of on Elvis, I would just pick up. Now, there's one thing that I always remember, you know, I would go into like gift shops when my parents took me away and the family to, like, let's say Blackpool or Skegness or Great Yarmouth or places like that in the United Kingdom. And you would see these Elvis Presley items that was not official releases. And to be honest with you, I found them a bit tacky. And I remember sometimes my mum would say, Mark, do you want me to buy that for you? It might be a t-shirt. And the image, it just wasn't Elvis. It was like an image that would pretend to be Elvis. And I'd say to mum, no, I don't want that t-shirt. It's not the right image. It's not official. I am a stickler for buying official Elvis Presley merchandise. I mean, obviously, I have had things purchased for me over the years from my exes, my partner now, and obviously, you know, I never say, oh, I don't like that, but obviously there is some things where I just think, right, I'll just put that away and kind of try not to get it out because, again, I do love anything on Elvis, but there's some things that I just really find a bit tacky. What's your opinion on that? So again, and then we're going on to the how Elvis got me through difficult times. So as I was saying earlier, I had a loving upbringing, but within myself, I did feel really isolated for a number of years as a gay man who was still in the closet. You know, I remember in secondary school, I had a very good friend, Steve, who is still one of my good friends to this day. He had an inkling, but we never discussed it. And, you know, I've always said to my friend Steve to this day, I just wish you would have spoken to me at that time, and I maybe would have done something about it earlier. And people have asked me before, I mean, how did you know? I knew because I have had a relationship with a woman before, but for me, it was because I felt I had to for, let's say, I wouldn't say I felt pressured by the family, because I never had a girlfriend, and my brothers did, and my sister had a boyfriend, and I never used to meet girls. I was never interested in girls. I knew I was attracted to men, but I tried to hide it for a number of years by listening to Elvis, listening to my other influences, and trying to hide away. I'd always go up into my bedroom, kind of, stay away from the limelight as much as possible. And obviously, at times, my mum and stepfather would say, "Come on, what's wrong? Come downstairs. What's wrong? You come and sit with us." And sometimes I would just shut myself away. And to this day, I just wish I had dealt with it earlier. But then going on to getting my first job, that is when I really started collecting on a bigger scale, as I was saying earlier. And to me, do you know when you start collecting Elvis, as we all know as Elvis collectors, it's like it's something that gets you where you just think, right, to me, it was CDs at first. Any CD that came out on Elvis, I had to buy, start that collection. And for me, I always remember the very first time, believe it or not, that I really studied Elvis from the 1950s music was the box set, The King of Rock and Roll from 1950. Sorry, I was going to say 1952, from 1992. I listened to all 5 CDs, and I absolutely was in awe, because I thought I had never known that much about Elvis music from the 1950s. So again, I then started appreciating Elvis from the 1950s. And to this day, to me, if it wasn't for the 1950s, Elvis wouldn't be here. Well, he wouldn't have given us the music he did. So for me, obviously, the 1950s does hold a special place in my heart, but I am sorry, it's not my favourite era. My favourite era is the 1970s, because of the reasons I said earlier. I was brought up around Elvis music from the 1970s. And I just want to go on to I'm going to go then now talk about Elvis movies. I'll always remember when I started collecting Elvis movies, I hadn't seen them, because the only ones that they used to show on TV was Blue Hawaii, GI Blues, or one of the earlier ones. And I was always in awe of Blue Hawaii, like your GI Blues. But besides that, I didn't really know much more about Elvis's movie career. And again, in the book, A King Forever, near the back, I want to find it if you don't mind. He says, I think it's yes, it is. So at the back, you will see there is a chronological list of Elvis Presley's movies next to the image of Elvis and Anne Margaret. And then it goes on to the following page. Now there you go, and it finishes with, that's from Roustabout there. I used to then go down that list individually and always buy one of them movies on VHS from my local HMV record store. It took me a number of years to get them all. And I started watching the movies one by one. Some of them I wasn't overly keen on, but the soundtracks I loved. For me, I always remember the first time that I did get to watch Change of Habit. It was a long time into my Elvis collecting, let's say, career. And the first time I had Change of Habit was on VHS, and I always remember watching it for the first time. I cried because I don't know. I don't know why I cried, because for me, I think it was Elvis at his best. I think it was a great performance by Elvis, great cast listing with Mary Tyler Moore, and it just got me so emotional that I could just watch that movie over and over again. I know to some Elvis fans it wouldn't be near their top, but I just adore that movie. And another movie that really caught my attention was Live a Little, Love a Little. I think it's a quirky comedy, and again, I think Elvis plays a great part in that movie with Michelle Carey, and I just loved the soundtrack. And obviously, from the early movies, you know, my favourite is King Creole, because I just adore crawfish. And yeah, but you know, so after the movies, you know, obviously you got your concerts like That's the Way It Is and Aloha from Hawaii. I'll always remember the first time that I watched Aloha from Hawaii. That would have been on TV. Again, I was looking up on the screen at this man that I was in awe of for a number of years, and I just thought, so special. He touched so many hearts, and I don't think Elvis realised that and how much he meant to people. And again, I just found it quite emotional. And then I got to hear about the alternate Aloha, and I didn't know much about it. And when I saw the alternate Aloha concert, I watched that on video, if I remember correctly. I much preferred the alternate Aloha. I felt he looked more relaxed. He was sharper, sorry, vocal wise, and gave more of a stellar performance. That's not to say the one that was beamed worldwide wasn't. I just felt the alternate Aloha, he looked more relaxed. And then going forward, obviously, when the vinyl market started picking up, I then started collecting Elvis on vinyl. So what you got to remember is, rewinding back into my Elvis collecting career, don't forget the first items I started collecting were CDs. I have never collected cassettes, never felt the need to. So it's always been CDs at first. So I had a vast collection of Elvis on CD. And then the vinyl market started to upsurge, and I was going to record fairs, I was going to charity shops, I was going to anywhere that where I knew I would be able to pick up Elvis albums, and I would be buying 5, 6 at a time, and my partner Matthew would be saying, "Mark, you've got that on CD. Mark, why are you getting that for?" But my partner knows, you know, when it comes to Elvis, if I want it, I will buy it. My husband is a collector of art, so obviously he has his passion. So Matthew really doesn't interfere with my Elvis collecting. Sometimes he will say to me, "I'm sure you've got that copy already," because he doesn't understand the different labels or the imports, or could be bonus tracks, because as Elvis collectors, that's what we all want, isn't it? And some people might think, well, that's a bit overboard, really. As long as you've got a copy of the album on CD or one copy on vinyl, why do you need another copy that's exactly the same from another part of the world? Some people will not understand that, but as Elvis collectors, I think we all know why we do it for. And, you know, I've been asked so many times, how much money do you think you've spent on Elvis? God, I just wouldn't like to say. I would go into 20 to £25,000, I would say, and that's no word of a lie. I've got a vast collection of magazines as well that I've kept over the years. I love Elvis magazines. The Elvis monthly magazines that used to be released through the official fan club of Great Britain in the United Kingdom, I've got a lot of them as well. I'd never get rid of them. They are stored in the attic. You know, I do sometimes get them down to have a look at, and I have shared them on the channel before. But so yeah, so for me, I'm really happy with my collection. Now, you know, I was saying to my husband the other night, I am struggling for space now for the vinyl, and I'm now thinking, right, what other vinyl in my collection do I have that's non-Elvis don't I require anymore? So that's where my mindset is in respect of, I want to grow the Elvis collection, but I'm also very conscious that I've got some other influences who I collect as well. But there is some albums that I just know, well, I don't really need them anymore. So I'm looking at selling them on, maybe doing a record fair, and kind of look at doing that maybe over the next few months. I've got about another 3 shelves to fill before I start considering that. Now, I have great feedback on my channel in respect of how I come across and my love of collecting Elvis whenever I get something new in my collection. And I thank you all for that. But that just goes to show, do you know, when you go to a record shop or a record fair and you see that Elvis product that you've not seen before, or you've been after for so many years but haven't had the opportunity to add to your collection, to me, that is so special to me. And again, obviously, as an Elvis collector, in my mind, I do have a general idea of price structures on vinyls of Elvis. So obviously I will always know if the seller is asking for a reasonable price or is it an extortionate price. And most sellers will always maybe come down on price, or they'll sell it at a reasonable price. So again, I just then want to now talk about, might be a touchy subject to some people. I mean, again, I have been asked this a number of times. What's my personal feelings on when Elvis Presley passed away? I do believe that Elvis did pass away on August 16th, 1977, unfortunately. And, again, people are saying, was it a heart attack? Yes. But I do believe it was because of the prescription drugs, and he was just unhealthy. Now, but again, people have also asked me, if Elvis hadn't have died on August 16th, 1977, where was his career have gone? I thought about this long and hard, because the late 70s, we were coming into the punk rocker era. And obviously, in the United States of America, I know Elvis music wasn't selling in high numbers. In the United Kingdom, Elvis was still a good seller, but not as big as he was previously. So obviously Elvis was that artist that people respected, and he would always still chart on both sides of the Atlantic. But in the latter 70s, people would always say his last few albums were very melancholy, like mostly somber. And I do agree with that to some aspect, because for me, Elvis was going through a lot in the latter years of the 70s with the divorce and with the influences around him. I mean, Elvis was someone that would not be told what to do. Elvis was his own boss, but at times I just wish Elvis stood up more and made firmer decisions with his career. Obviously he looked a lot on Colonel Tom Parker to do that side of the business, and I'm not having a go about Colonel Tom Parker here, but if Colonel Tom Parker wanted Elvis to tour, Elvis would tour. He just wouldn't argue the case. And in my humble opinion, I do think Elvis enjoyed touring. To me, he wanted nothing more than to be on that stage, giving his fans what they wanted. And I would never, ever deter on that. And people have always said Elvis went to the Colonel and asked to take 2 years off. I don't know if that did happen. I don't know if I believe that. But if Elvis did, I wish that would have happened. I do feel Elvis needed time out. But Elvis was very frightened of people forgetting him. He was someone that probably felt, if I go away for a couple of years to rest, where's the public going to see me when I return? And for me, I do think that's a masterstroke, because at the end of the day, with the music tastes changing, where would Elvis have fitted in that new genre of music? Obviously, Elvis had his core fan base that would never leave him, but obviously the new influences were coming in to the record buying public, and again, the punk rock era. So for me, I think Elvis would have continued touring in the latter 70s after 77. I do believe he would have kept on touring and he would have constantly been sold out. I think he would have been that artist that, again, would just have been releasing albums and not doing much promotion except for the concert tours. Now let's go into the 1980s. So then obviously we had the true romantic era come through, didn't we? And again, where would Elvis have fitted? I don't think he would have personally. I think Elvis couldn't change his style of music. Elvis Presley was Elvis Presley, and he didn't need to change. And again, you know, he still would have charted. He still would have been popular. He still would have had sold out tours. I don't think for 1 minute he would ever have toured the UK. I don't think that ever would have happened. Again, I think he would have done more gospel music. I think he would have done more country music. And again, I think for me, you know, with regards to the influences around Elvis, I don't think Elvis could have changed that as well. I mean, because obviously I know 2 of his bodyguards were sacked and they came out with a book, unfortunately. But Elvis, even though I said he would not be told what to do, Elvis was very influenced, I believe, by the people around him as well. And so again, for me, you know, I just wish Elvis would have took more control of his career. And then obviously, going into the latter 80s and 90s, I mean, obviously Elvis would have been going into his 60s. And again, I still think Elvis would have been recording, but he would have been that act that you would go and see in concert. But I don't think his albums would have been that successful. As I was saying, he would have had that core fan base. But again, horrible to say, but obviously, you know, some of them might have passed away or found new influences. But again, Elvis was that artist that, you know, just the name Elvis did it alone, didn't it? He would have continued to have toured and brought in the money. Now let's talk about the movie career. You know, people have asked me, do you think Elvis would have done more movies? Difficult to say. Maybe, but I don't think that's where Elvis would have wanted to have gone, because, again, I think he probably would have wanted to focus more on the music side of things. But I'm not saying he wouldn't have done more movies. Maybe would have done a couple more. But I personally think he would have just concentrated on the music side of his career. But again, I want to also talk about his last girlfriend, Ginger Alden. Again, I've been asked a number of times, do you think they would have got married? I personally don't think they would have. Again, people might disagree with me on that one, and we are all entitled to our own opinions. I don't think he would have married Ginger Alden personally, but I could be wrong. And again, I think Elvis's true love was Priscilla, and I think when you look at 1973 onwards and after the divorce, I do think Elvis went on that trajectory of somber mood and the melancholy album songs. Even though I love them albums, I think he was very influenced by that divorce. And I think Elvis thought that would never happen to him. And, you know, was Priscilla brave to do that? Again, I don't want to be negative, but for me personally, what was Priscilla to Elvis except for his wife? For me, I think there's blame on both sides. In respect of, obviously, Elvis, I do believe, had relationships behind Priscilla's back while he was on tour, but Priscilla herself, I don't think she helped herself in respect of, you know, I think she should have said to Elvis, no, I do want to come on tour with you and I want to bring Lisa Marie. But obviously Elvis banned that, didn't he? All wives were banned on going on the tour. So again, that gave Elvis the opportunity to kind of have these affairs. I think the only other woman in Elvis's life after Priscilla that really he loved, I do believe, in my opinion, was Linda Thompson. Obviously, there was other girlfriends that he had, but Linda Thompson, you could see, was a positive influence for him, and he was really happy with Linda. And to me, I think they should have got married. I don't know why it did not happen. Maybe someone has their own opinion and want to reply in the comments below. But I truly believe Linda Thompson was the other love of his life. I've had the opportunity to meet Linda Thompson at the Strictly Elvis Festival in the United Kingdom. She is a lovely lady and speaks beautiful words about Elvis, never puts him in a negative light. So thank you, Linda, for not tarnishing Elvis's legacy. Now, when you talk about women in Elvis Presley's life, people sometimes say, well, what about Anne Margaret? Again, yes, but was he in love with Anne Margaret, or was it just, it was just attraction? I believe it was just attraction. You could see in the movie Viva Las Vegas, they burned on screen. You could see they thoroughly enjoyed playing alongside each other. And obviously something happened behind the scenes where they totally respected each other and were attracted to each other. I don't think it was love. I just think it was attraction on both sides. But yeah, so again, being an avid Elvis collector and being a collector since the latter part of the 80s, I'm really happy with where my collection is at. I don't buy everything, because I think if I buy everything on Elvis, again, I'm just going to not have room to put it in my house. I used to want to buy every single item, like CD and vinyl that would be coming out. I do tend to buy newer vinyls that now come out, especially on the Memphis Recording Service label. I always buy the CDs, not the vinyl on them. I prefer the CDs, but like the music on vinyl label. I do have some Follow That Dream in my collection, the imports. So I still love collecting all that sort of stuff. Like books, I don't buy as much now. So I'll only buy an Elvis book if I've not got it in my collection, or I feel it will add something to my collection, or believe it or not, if it's cheap. You know, most Elvis books now I pick up from charity shops. And then I've also been asked, what is the best item that I have in my Elvis Presley collection? Now, it's a very, very difficult question to answer, because I have to go back to the very beginning of my collecting days. And you know, when you're talking about special things that mean a lot to you, because at that time I was going through difficulties in my personal life, trying to be someone that I wasn't, and having Elvis as that outlet for me kind of got me through and kind of gave me the confidence to kind of want to be myself and not be ashamed of who I was. So I'm going to have to go back to the Reader's Digest set. Again, these are very special to me. And again, they're not worth much. You can get these for £20 to £25. It's what they mean to me as a person. And they are very special indeed, because they got me through difficult times. So obviously that's the most special item that I've got in my collection. And I am going to say the book as well, because I read this book so many times over on Elvis, because he meant so much to me. I would read it page to page over and over again, because I wanted to be closer to the man who was Elvis. And then obviously, out of the vinyls, I would have to go for the very first one that I owned in my collection, that my mum gifted me from her older sister, who sadly passed away. She had this in her collection since it was brand new. So I am going to have to say this is very significant to me also, Elvis 40 Greatest on the Arcade label. So that's all I want to say on Elvis. Now, other people have asked me, what are my other influences outside of Elvis? This is the only time I'm going to do it, because I just want this channel to be solely Elvis. But my other influences, I am also an avid collector of Eddie Cochran, a superb rock and roller who was taken way too soon in 1960. So Eddie Cochran, I've got around 25 albums on Eddie Cochran and about 10 CDs. And I've got some Buddy Holly, he's an influence as well. Country music wise, my favorite female singer is Patsy Cline. I've got a good number of Patsy Cline vinyl, so big Patsy Cline fan. Present music, believe it or not, some of you across the pond might not know, but she is a very big artist in Europe, Kylie Minogue. I'm a very big collector of Kylie Minogue as well. Followed Kylie Minogue's career since 1987, and I have a vast collection. And I also collect ABBA. So everyone loves ABBA. So yeah, they are my main collecting records and CDs that I own. And I'm also a big George Michael fan. So they're my main influences. But obviously, when you get asked that question, in your collection of vinyl, who would you always keep? Elvis all day long. Elvis, you cannot understand how important this man is in my life. Me and my husband talk about this, and sometimes he'll say, "Oh God, you look on Elvis better than me." It's a different kind of love, and I've always said that my love for my husband is very different from the love that I've got for Elvis. I always say to my husband, "You wasn't there in the early part of me growing up, being insecure, being isolated, being alone as a closeted gay man." So again, Elvis has helped me more than what my husband has. So the love I've got for my husband obviously is pure love, and the love I've got for Elvis is out of respect for what he has helped me through in my upbringing. Now, obviously, I've also been asked what made me start the 100% Pure Elvis channel. I have said this before. Now, I've always suffered with confidence issues, always. And I don't think that will ever go away. I think when you have a mental health maybe problem, where my mental health struggles are anxiety and confidence, I get really anxious. And sometimes I get that anxious, I physically shake, and I just know I'm going to have a panic attack in a minute, and I can't really do much about it. But the other thing is confidence. And in confidence, I mean the confidence in knowing, I don't want to get upset, but confidence in respect of, am I proud of who I am? Is my husband proud of who I am? Are my family proud of who I am? I know they are. And I know I'm very good at what I do with my job. And I know I'm very good with my 100% Pure Elvis channel. And I know I'm a good friend to my friends that I have around me. But I've always struggled with confidence in respect of, if someone says to me, "Mark, you're great at your job there. Well done. I couldn't get anyone better to do it." To me, I love that, but I'd always try and find a negative, because I'd always say, "Oh God, that's come out of the blue," and I'm not confident on that sort of thing. But I don't want to go on about being negative. But yeah, so the love for Elvis is out of respect of what he had brought to my life, and obviously, sadly, we lost Elvis way too soon. And again, some people, I don't want to be hurtful to people, but some people say it's a masterstroke that Elvis passed away on August 16th, 1977, because again, his career has not got, has only grown and grown and grown. I do believe that, actually, because again, these megastars that die young, they will always be remembered as that young person who will never age to them, in my humble opinion. And again, when I'm talking about Elvis, I'm also asked why are the 70s my favourite era? Simply because of my upbringing, and I prefer the music from the 70s. And again, I'm also asked, do I have a favourite era of Elvis with how he looked? Yes, 69 to 72. To me, that was the best. And obviously, to me, the 68 special, but the press conference from 1969, I'll always remember I think he is so tanned and handsome. And to me, what a beautiful human being. And again, I will say it on this channel, and it's not a negative, but I've been asked by some of my friends who are not gay, was Elvis homophobic? I ain't got a clue. I've heard that he was, but how would you know? Where's the evidence? Obviously, Elvis would have lived in a different era where it was more difficult. So I don't know. And I wouldn't like to say yes, and I wouldn't like to say no. So I don't even want to broach that subject. And to me, if someone said to me, yes, he was, would it change my opinion on Elvis? Not at all. Not at all. He has helped me through so much in my personal life. I could never look at him any differently whatsoever. So again, I want to end this upload on giving you an update on my health and the health of my mum. I just want to say thank you all for reaching out to me personally and asking me about my health and the health of my mum. Now, my mum is making slow recovery after 10 weeks in hospital. 10 whole weeks in hospital my mum has been, and she is now thankfully on the mend. Thank the Lord. And I pray every night to the Lord. I'm not a religious person, but I do believe there is a higher God who we can turn to in difficult times, and I think he has answered my prayers. My health, I am still struggling. I love doing this channel, and I will never deter from doing this channel. There might be times where you might not see me for a couple of weeks, but I will always give you reasons why. Now, you've all given me the confidence to continue with doing this channel. I go through low times at least 2 to 3 times in a week, and I do struggle. But I find the other door on the other side, it's open, and you're walking out into fresh air where you can breathe into your lungs that clean air that's around you. And I will have Elvis music on. I will calm down. My husband will come and sit with me and we'll have a talk. It could be a number of things. But yes, I'm getting there, but I'm not fully there as yet. Thank you all for reaching out. Now, I'm very conscious of the timings on this upload. So I just wanted to say thank you for giving me your time, and thank you for listening to me. I really do appreciate it. If you want to reach out to me personally, please do not hesitate. Again, comment on my channel. I am more than happy to give you my email address if you would like to contact me via email, and I can reply personally. So I don't want to give that online, but in the comments below, if you want my email address, I will reply to you. And again, let's keep Elvis in the limelight. And I want to end, as always, please keep Elvis close to your hearts. Please keep on playing his music. Lots of love, everybody. Keep well. Speak soon. Bye-bye.